They are the biggest protests Jordan has seen in years. Thousands of people have walked out of their workplaces to demand the government withdraw a new tax bill.
This is a referendum against the income tax law and a request to the government to withdraw this draft from the parliament. This draft affects the poor and the middle class.
Jordan depends heavily on energy imports. Rising fuel prices are depleting its foreign exchange reserves. Economic growth is sluggish, and 1 in 5 Jordanians is jobless. The government owes $40 billion, and it wants to borrow another $700 million from the International Monetary Fund. But it has to raise taxes to convince the lender it can pay the money back. So it plans to slap a sales tax on 165 items and raise fuel prices. Utility rates and transport fares will also go up, and people earning $22,700 per year will have to pay income tax. The threshold is currently $40,000. People who don't pay up will face heavy fines and jail terms, and for many Jordanians, that's unacceptable.
Citizens can't handle these economic burdens. We shouldn't have to pay the IMF tax and the debts of the country.
Following Mulki's resignation, King Abdullah has invited Education Minister al-Razaz to form the new government. But the incoming Prime Minister will have to push ahead with the same painful reforms that have brought thousands of Jordanians to the streets in the first place. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
And for more on this, Rana Sweis joins me now from Amman. She's a journalist and author of the upcoming book, Voices of Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, the now former Prime Minister had a chance to scrap these proposed tax hikes, but he chose to stick with them until he was forced to resign. Are these measures, these tax increases, a bitter pill that Jordan must swallow in order for the country to fix its economy?
Well, I think the tax law is the sign of deeper problems where the government has failed really to deliver on economic growth and development. Basically, what we've seen the past few days is a result of pent-up grievances, bad governance, and failed economic policies, as your report mentioned, that I believe need urgent also political reform at the same time. It's also indicative of the lack of government responsiveness to people's priorities, which is unemployment, to provide also services and corruption. This is an accumulation of basically bad policies over the years. The tax law was meant to cut down on public debt and also reduce the budget deficit and generate revenue based on the 3-year agreement with the IMF in 2016. But with the austerity measures, people's complaints have been louder because incomes have remained stagnant for years. GDP per capita is around 2.24%, according to the World Bank.
Yes, and this is happening in an environment where Amman was just considered a few days ago by The Economist to be one of, the most expensive Arab city, and even more expensive than places like London, Washington and Rome. I'm wondering, paint us a picture. What is it like for the average Jordanian?
So you have a population where the majority is under 35. So most people you see in Jordan are actually young people, and we have seen them on the streets. The majority of the people who have gone to the protests are, techies, families, lawyers, doctors, computer programmers, taxi drivers, from all walks of life, many women as well. It's detrimental to see an educated youth who have smartphones, who are politically savvy, who are exposed really to the world, but have no opportunities. And you feel it when you walk in the streets, when you see people in cafes, you see the youth at night just hanging out near their cars because they can't afford to go to cafes. So it's very obvious, I would say. You see a decline in services in general, especially outside of Amman, and spending, because as the prices have gone up, the wages have remained the same, as I mentioned. So, people are postponing weddings because they can't afford it. So spending is down even on basic goods.
Yes, and even with the new Prime Minister, Jordan will eventually have to face the reality of its serious economic issues. What happens next?
I think fundamentally we need to reevaluate how we want to move forward. Some would argue we're at a crossroads. We need comprehensive political and economic reforms. And this is not just a statement or a vague statement. People need to feel that they are part of the political and economic process, that they have a voice and a say in decisions. Also, when we talk about Jordan, there's a high perception of corruption as well. So by having political and economic reforms, this means we'll have more transparency and more accountability. The government, most importantly, needs to regain the trust of the people. We need a representative election law and more support for investors and entrepreneurs. The investment environment needs to improve as well.
Yes, so clearly part of a bigger discussion that Jordanians need to have. Rana Sweis, we do appreciate your time. Thank you.